members of the press, the American public, and people of the world. We are here today to disclose the truth about a subject that has been ridiculed and questioned, denied for at least 50 years.
Why do you say that UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying over our heads?
Well, because I know that they are. They've been, as a matter of fact, they've been visiting our planet for thousands of years. And one of the cases that would interest you most, if you give me 2 or 3 minutes to answer, is during the Cold War in 1961, there were about 50 UFOs in formation flying south from Russia to across Europe. And the Supreme Allied Commander was very concerned and about ready to press the panic button when they turned around and went back over the North Pole. So they decided to do an investigation, and they investigated for 3 years, and they decided that with absolute certainty that 4 different species at least, had been visiting this planet for thousands of years. So that's, we have a long history of UFOs, and of course there's been a lot more activity in the last few decades since we invented the atomic bomb, and they're very concerned about that and the fact that we might use it again. And because the whole cosmos is a unity, and it affects not just us but other people in the cosmos, they're very much afraid that we might be stupid enough to start using atomic weapons again, and this would be very bad for us and for them as well.
Robert Dean has a list of credentials a mile long. He served 4 years from 1963 to 1967 at Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers, Europe, the military arm of NATO. He was an intelligence analyst with a cosmic top-secret clearance.
Well, Don, it began for me in 1963 when I was assigned to the Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers in Europe. I arrived in the summer of '63 and I was assigned to the Operations Division. I was further assigned to what we call SHOC, the War Room, the Supreme Headquarters Operations Center. And at that time I was given a cosmic top-secret clearance, which was and still is the highest level of security access that NATO has. When I was assigned to the War Room, I learned that a study had been initiated in 1961, and everybody was talking about it. They were gossiping about it. The subject was UFOs, and that intrigued me a bit. When that study was concluded in 1964, it was published, and I was still working in the War Room at that time. I had access to this document. I had a chance to read it. And having been exposed to it, I must tell you honestly that my life has never ever quite been the same. Because I read first-hand reports, verifiable NATO military material that indicated that the UFOs were not only real, but they represented something far beyond anything I had ever imagined before. When the study was concluded in '64, they concluded that there were 4 different groups apparently coming and visiting us. Out of those 4 different groups, one group looked exactly like we do, so much so that they could sit beside you in a restaurant, or in an airplane, or in a theater, and you'd never know.
Yes, there has been ET visitation, and may continue to be. There has been craft that have been recovered. There has been a certain amount of reverse engineering that has allowed some of these craft or some components to be duplicated, and that there are humanoids from our planet, Earthlings, who are utilizing some of this equipment in certain ways. And that perhaps a large part of the activity that's classified as UFO activity, abductions and a whole host of this type of activity, may very well not be due to ET activity at all. I would suspect if any is due to ET activity, it's a rather small part. and a larger portion is due to humanoid type activity, earthling type activity, in a very clandestine fashion.
It's not an infrequent occurrence out there, and quite often.
There were probably 1,500 reported cases at that time. I have over 3,000 cases now.
They estimated 100 yards from the left wing was this 100-foot disc.
And the strength of the signal was as strong as the surface contact on the water on the aircraft carrier. This contact was huge.
The size of these objects around 100 meters or greater.
So it would go from 1 o'clock, 7 or 8 miles to 6, 7 o'clock, 7 or 8 miles inside of 4 or 5 seconds. You have to be moving quickly. They could rise, just go straight up. They could do that, it seemed like instantaneous. Once they started moving, they went straight up, for a while, and then they went zap. Then it just sort of disappeared, dematerialized, and left the atmosphere just was gone. It just took off into space. It just left at high speed.
He said, "You are never to speak of this again. As far as you're concerned, this never happened."
You never saw this. I don't exist, and this situation never happened. I didn't want to look at it any longer than that because I felt that my life was in jeopardy.
So I was beaten, literally hit in the ribs and pushed, and I was resisting, and I know Sergeant Jacinto was doing the same thing.
Measures have been taken by agencies to terminate people who appear to be inconvenient or troublesome if they remain too much.
A shadowy government with its own Air Force, his own Navy, his own fundraising mechanism, and the ability to pursue his own ideas of the national interest, free from all checks and balances, and free from the law itself.
I am prepared to state that I have been at locations where craft of unknown origin that did not originate on the face of this planet was there. I am prepared to state that while I was there, we saw living, dead bodies of entities that were not born on this planet.
Most people may not accept this. I knew that it was a lot of skepticism, but I didn't know that the President of the United States had been denied access to controlling these projects, that there was a secret cabal called Majestic that is keeping this information from the world for a reason which at that time I was unaware of, and that the secrecy was killing the life of the planet.
I'm Phil Schneider. I worked 17 years for the United States government as a geologist and aerospace engineer as well as a structural engineer. I worked for such elusive occupations with Boris and Knudsen, Bechtel, Page and Page, Aerospatiale of France, and a host of other, EG&G and a host of other, Los Alamos Laboratory and these kind of things. The black budget still rolls on, garnering up over $1 trillion every 2 years. It's somewhere between 1.023 trillion and 1.31 trillion dollars every 2 years. And every year it goes by and the black budget is unchecked, unaccounted for, it's just subverting our country. That's number one. Number two is that these underground military, first of all, if there was something like a nuclear war or there was a definite enemy out there where we were going to be under attack, I could see maybe a couple of dozen underground bases. Now, these underground bases are most likely been planned as underground prison camps and slave labor factories for the New World Order. The New World Order is taking, and the United Nations is taking its orders from believe it or not, these more powerful outer space alien entities, we might call them the large grays or the small grays. Sinister forces indeed. But 13 attempts on my life since the first of this year. Yes, I was involved in 1979, in August, late August of 1979. I was involved working through Los Alamos Laboratories at Dulce, New Mexico, and what's now known as the Alien-Human War. 66 Secret Service agents, government workers, geologists, and the like. I almost bit the dust. I could have been number 67. Lost their lives that day because the government lied and knew full well what was underneath. And I was one of the rare few that had been allured that this may or may not occur, and so basically was given ET training. But a lot of these other people weren't, and we were. In fact, it was asked, "Are there aliens in the area?" And of course, the big question was no, and that was a big lie. And of course, 66 people died that day. I have a big hole in my chest. I lost my lung was literally burnt out of me. My fingers burnt off of me. My toenails burnt off of me. My skin was, I was in radiation isolation therapy for 400 plus days. My bones were vitrified or burnt. I was cooked. I managed to survive.
You're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art.
Yes.
Hi. I don't have a whole lot of time.
Well, look, let's begin by finding out whether you're using this line properly or not.
Area 51.
Yes, right. Were you an employee or are you now?
A former employee.
Former employee.
I was let go on a medical discharge about a week ago, and I've kind of been running across the country. Oh man, I don't know where to start. They're gonna they'll triangulate on this position really soon.
Well, you can't spend a lot of time on the phone, so give us something quick.
Okay. Okay. What we're thinking of as aliens are they're extra-dimensional beings that an earlier precursor of the space program made contact with. They are not what they claim to be. They have infiltrated a lot of aspects of the military establishment, particularly the Area 51. The disasters that are coming, the military, the government knows about them, and there's a lot of safe areas in this world that they could begin moving the population to now, Art.
But they're not doing anything.
They are not. They want the major population centers wiped out so that the few that are left will be more easily controllable.
Discharged.
I started getting...
Here, we lost all transmit capability on this end. Here in Nevada, the transmitter went belly up suddenly. For some unknown reason, I've never seen it do this in all the years that we've been on the air.